The bell rings inside the Shaolin temple at 5 in the morning. It is still dark on Mount Song. A boy of about 11 years old, in grey cotton robes, slips out of his sleeping mat in a stone dormitory and joins a long line of other boys filing through a courtyard slick with frost. His head is shaved. His feet are bare. His breath rises in clouds. Within minutes, he will be holding a low, deep stance on cold flagstones for what feels like an hour, while an older monk walks slowly behind the line, tapping the back of any leg that begins to rise. By the time the sun comes up, that boy will have meditated, stretched, run several miles up a mountain trail, and started his first formal kung fu drill of the day. But the truth is, the moves you see in films are not where Shaolin is built. Shaolin is built in the dark, in the silence, in the legs of an 11-year-old who is no longer allowed to stand the way ordinary boys stand. To understand the real training of a Shaolin warrior monk, you have to understand what Shaolin actually is. The temple sits in Henan province, in central China, at the foot of Mount Song, which is one of the 5 sacred mountains in Chinese tradition. It was founded in the late 5th century as a Buddhist monastery dedicated to the Chan school, the Chinese branch of Buddhism that would eventually become known in Japan as Zen. According to centuries of legend, an Indian monk named Bodhidharma arrived at Shaolin in the early 6th century and found the resident monks too weak to sit through long meditation. He is said to have taught them a series of physical exercises to strengthen the body for stillness. Whether that exact story is true or symbolic, the principle behind it shapes everything Shaolin does. The body is not the enemy of the spirit. The body is the platform the spirit stands on. Shaolin became famous over the following centuries as the place where Chan meditation and a unique martial tradition grew together, not as opposites, as one practice with 2 faces. So why does a Buddhist monastery train its members to fight at all? The answer is practical, not ideological. From the Tang dynasty in the 7th century onward, Shaolin sat in a region constantly threatened by bandits, warlords, and political upheaval. Several times in its history, the monastery itself was burned to the ground. Famously, in the early 7th century, a small group of Shaolin monks was credited in imperial records with helping the future Emperor Taizong defeat a rival warlord, an event that would become one of the cornerstone legends of the temple. That single moment helped earn Shaolin official recognition from the throne and an enduring reputation as fighting monks. From there, the tradition grew into something more than self-defense. It grew into a path. The monks began to see martial training itself as moving meditation, a practice in which breath, posture, focus, and intention were trained at the same time as the punch, the stance, and the strike. The fight, when it had to come, was the smallest part. The decades of preparation were the real practice. The story of every warrior monk traditionally begins very young. In its original form, before tourism and modern schools changed the landscape, boys entered Shaolin between the ages of about 6 and 12. Some were orphans the temple took in and raised. Others were sent by families seeking discipline, education, or simply a future for a son they could not feed. A boy who entered Shaolin did not begin his training with kicks and punches. He began with chores, sweeping flagstones, carrying water, working in the kitchens, cleaning the meditation halls, learning the layout of the temple, learning to bow, learning to obey. The first months are about humility, about reducing a boy to a clean surface that can be written on. The masters of Shaolin have long understood that you cannot teach something powerful to someone who has not first been taught to listen. So the broom and the bucket come before the staff and the sword. When formal training does begin, the very first thing the boy learns is how to sit. Chan Buddhist meditation, called Zuochan in Chinese, is the spine of Shaolin. Recruits sit on cushions in long rows in the meditation hall, often before sunrise, in robes that do almost nothing against the cold of the mountain. They are taught to settle the breath, to lengthen the spine, to keep the eyes half closed and softly focused. They are taught that thoughts will come and that the practice is not to chase them and not to fight them, but simply to notice them and return to the breath. The first sessions feel impossibly long. The legs ache, the back stiffens, the mind races. But over months, something changes. The boy can sit longer, he can breathe slower, his pulse drops, his attention sharpens. By the time he ever throws a punch in formal training, he has already been trained to be still, alert, and present in his own body. The Shaolin masters have a saying that captures the whole approach. A still mind moves the body. A loud mind only moves itself. After meditation comes the exercise that almost every monk in history has come to fear and respect at the same time. Horse stance, called Ma Bu. The student plants his feet wider than his shoulders, sinks his hips down until his thighs are roughly parallel to the floor, keeps his back straight, and holds. The first goal is 1 minute, then 5, then 10, then 20. Advanced students hold Ma Bu for 30 minutes or more, sometimes with a heavy book or a wooden bowl of water balanced on each thigh. A common training image at Shaolin is a row of young students in horse stance, sweat running into their eyes, an instructor walking the line and tapping any rising thigh with a switch of bamboo. The point is not punishment. The point is to build legs that can support every other movement in Kung Fu. Every kick, every transition, every fast turn in a fight rides on top of the legs and hips that horse stance forges. Outside the temple, athletes call this isometric training. Inside the temple, it is something simpler. It is the foundation. Without it, no Shaolin technique will ever work. With it, even an average student starts to look extraordinary. Around horse stance, the rest of the body is built. A Shaolin trainee runs a lot. Long mountain runs along the trails of Mount Song, often before breakfast, in cloth shoes or sometimes barefoot. Distances of 3 to 6 miles up steep, uneven ground are standard. He does push-ups, often on closed knuckles, and as he advances, on fingertips. The most senior students sometimes train 1-finger or 2-finger push-ups, which look impossible until you understand they are the result of 15 or 20 years of progressive conditioning. Stretching is relentless. Front splits and side splits are required so that high kicks can be thrown without losing balance. Kicks are practiced at heights well above a man's own head. Hand strikes are repeated thousands of times against the air, against pads, and eventually against wood and stone. None of this is glamorous. None of it makes for impressive cinema. But this is what builds the engine that the famous Shaolin movement sits on top of. Once the body is becoming an instrument, the boy begins to learn the forms. A form, called a taolu, is a choreographed sequence of techniques. A traditional Shaolin form might contain 100 or more movements stitched together. There are dozens of major forms in the temple's curriculum, ranging from short basic sets like the Lian Huan Quan, the linked fists, to long, complex sequences inspired by animals such as the tiger, the crane, the leopard, the monkey, and the praying mantis. Each form is, on the surface, a kind of moving dance. Underneath, it is a textbook. Every transition is also a defense. Every strike is also a setup. Every shift of the hips is also a takedown angle. The student is told to memorize the form first, then perfect it, then understand it, then forget it. By the time he has spent years on a single form, the techniques inside it no longer feel like techniques. They feel like reflexes. That is the goal. The form is not a performance. It is a way of compressing thousands of fight patterns into the muscles, so that, in a real exchange, the body chooses without being asked. Then, the weapons are added, and the warrior monk's tradition explodes outward. The first and most respected weapon at Shaolin is the wooden staff, called the gun. The staff is sometimes called the king of all Shaolin weapons. 6 feet of polished waxwood that, in trained hands, can sweep, thrust, parry, and block faster than the eye can comfortably follow. The student trains the staff for years before being allowed near a sharp blade. Then come the straight sword, the broadsword, the spear, the 3-section staff, and exotic weapons like the chain whip, the rope dart, and the 9-ringed broadsword. Each weapon is treated as a teacher. The straight sword teaches precision. The broadsword teaches rhythm and rolling power. The spear teaches distance and footwork. The 3-section staff teaches timing, and the courage to handle a tool that can hit you almost as easily as it hits an opponent. The student does not just learn to swing these weapons, he learns to live inside them. By the end, the weapon does not feel like a separate object. It feels like a longer arm. If you are getting pulled into how Shaolin training actually works, hit subscribe so the next deep dive lands in your feed. The next half is where the iron body conditioning, the partner drills, and the final stage of becoming a warrior monk come in. Around the same time the weapons begin, so does the most controversial part of the training, the conditioning known as iron body. Shaolin masters teach that the bones, skin, and connective tissues of the body can be made denser, harder, and more resistant to impact through years of progressive striking. The student starts gently. He slaps a soft sandbag with the open palm. He wraps his forearms against a padded post. He kicks at a hanging bag of mung beans or rice. Over months, the bag becomes harder. Sand is mixed in. Eventually, in the most advanced traditions, students strike against bags filled with iron filings or against wooden and stone posts. Iron palm, iron forearm, and iron leg routines are practiced for years, often combined with herbal liniments called Diet de Jiao, which are believed to speed up the healing of the small impacts. Modern sports science partly supports the principle. Bones do remodel under repeated stress. Connective tissue does thicken. Boxers, MMA fighters, and Muay Thai practitioners use lighter versions of the same idea on their shins and knuckles. Cinema has exaggerated the effect. Real iron body training is not magic, but over 15 or 20 years, the result is a forearm that can block a swung staff, a palm that can break a stack of clay tiles, and a shin that can absorb a kick that would shatter an untrained leg. Then the training becomes interactive. Two-man drills, paired sets, and free sparring. A pair of students will run choreographed sequences in which one attacks and the other defends, switching roles with each cycle. The drills look almost like dance from the outside, but they are training reaction time, distance, and sensitivity. From there, the work moves into freer exchanges. Modern Shaolin students often train Sanda, the Chinese full-contact striking and throwing system, with gloves, headgear, and shin pads. They learn to absorb a real punch. They learn what it feels like when a kick connects to the ribs. They learn the moment in a fight when technique starts to break down and conditioning takes over. This is where many young students hit their first true wall. The forms are beautiful, the partner drills are exciting, but the first hard sparring session is humbling for almost everyone. It is also necessary. Without it, the rest of the training is theory. After it, the rest of the training has weight. Quietly running underneath all of this is breathwork, called Gong. Every morning and evening, students practice sets that combine slow movement, deep breathing, and focused attention. Some sets emphasize building energy. Others emphasize calming the system after intense training. Traditional Chinese medicine describes this as cultivating qi, the vital energy of the body. Modern physiology describes the same practices in different language. Diaphragmatic breathing increases lung capacity and oxygen efficiency. Slow, controlled exhalation activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which speeds recovery. Holding postures with deliberate breathing trains both endurance and focus at the same time. Whether you frame it in classical Chinese terms or in sports science, the result is the same. Shaolin students recover faster, hold their composure under pressure, and maintain stamina through training days that would crush most untrained athletes. Qigong is the part of the training that almost never appears in films. It is also one of the most important parts. Of course, none of this works without discipline, and the discipline at Shaolin is famously strict. Late arrivals, sloppy stances, and disrespect to a teacher are all corrected on the spot. The corrections are rarely cruel. They are usually just more training, extra ma bu, extra running. The same form, repeated 30 more times. A long meditation session at the end of a brutal day. The system understands something simple about human nature. People do not learn from being told. They learn from being shaped. So a young monk who has been corrected with another 40 minutes of horse stance does not just learn the rule, He learns the rule with his thighs, his back, and his breath. By the time he is 16 or 17 years old, he has been corrected so many thousands of times that the corrections live inside his movement. He no longer needs a teacher to tell him when his stance is wrong. He feels it himself, in his hips, before anyone else can see it. After all of that, after years of meditation, stances, forms, weapons, conditioning, and sparring, only a small number of students take the final step. They become formally recognized warrior monks. Most boys who train at Shaolin or at the many martial arts schools around the temple complex are never actually ordained. They train hard, sometimes for a decade or more, and then return to civilian life as accomplished martial artists, performers, or instructors. The ones who do choose to become monks take Buddhist vows. They commit to the precepts of non-killing, non-stealing, non-lying, non-sexual misconduct, and non-intoxication. They commit to a life of meditation and service inside the temple. The kung fu they have spent 15 or 20 years building is, from that day forward, framed as a tool for protecting the temple, demonstrating the Dharma to the world, and disciplining the self. It is not for ego. It is not for fights in the street. It is not even, in the strictest reading, for combat at all. It is for the same reason Bodhidharma is said to have introduced movement into the temple in the first place, so that the body can carry a quiet mind through a long life of practice. When you watch a Shaolin demonstration on a stage, you see the leaping kicks, the staff spinning faster than the eye can track, the breaking of stones across a forearm. What the demonstration almost never shows is the 11-year-old boy in the dark courtyard, cold flagstones under his bare feet, holding Mabu, while an older monk walks slowly behind the line. That is where Shaolin warrior monks are actually built. Not in the kicks, not in the films, in the legs, in the breath, in the silence. The temple has done this for more than 1,500 years for one reason: because it works. Because given enough time and enough discipline, an ordinary boy can be turned into something that, on a stage, looks superhuman, and that, in private, has simply been training a little bit longer than anyone outside the temple is willing to train. If this look inside Shaolin warrior monk training pulled you in, the best thing you can do is hit subscribe so the next story finds you when it lands. Smash the like button if this hit harder than you expected, because that small tap is what tells the algorithm to push videos like this in front of more viewers who care about real martial arts traditions. And drop a comment below telling me which part stayed with you the most: the morning meditation, the Mabu hold, the iron body conditioning, or the moment a boy becomes a monk, because I read every single one. Stick around, the past is louder than people think, and there is plenty more of it waiting for you on this channel.